Let's transition, Mensch. I've been talking too much. I'm going to let you get started on this. I want to talk about Ole Miss first.
Okay.
Lane Kiffin wins the game that Lane Kiffin has not been able to win.
Right.
Ole Miss wins the game that Ole Miss as a program has never. One other time, this is just the second time against an AP top 2 team or a top, a team in the top 2. I think it was the second time ever Ole Miss has done that. There might be a caveat in there, but it was a win unlike many, if any others that we've seen out of an Ole Miss program.
Right.
I'm going to throw it to you for a second. I got a lot of thoughts here, but what jumped out to you, Ole Miss?
Well, I mean, even just, and you saw it in this game, but let's big picture it here for a second. If I asked you who gives up the fewest yards per carry in the country and has more sacks than any other team, if you're asking a guy who watches college football every year, how many people do you think would say Ole Miss? I mean, this defense is legit. And they're loaded at wide receiver. I mean, Trey Harris is out for a few games, and it's like they don't even blink. The pre-scoring, the tight end, he doesn't move like a Colson Loveland. He doesn't move like that kind of a guy, but a big body, he can make plays. I think he popped for like 7 catches and almost 100 yards in a game. I should look that up to get the exact numbers, but I mean, he pops every once in a while. This offense could still strike fast, man. And there's all that, but I cannot remember an Ole Miss defense that can kind of, just end a game. That can just change the game. Hard to move the ball at them, hard to run the ball, hard to pass the ball. To me, it's that defense, and I know we're going to get into it, but that defensive front specifically. This is a different group.
It's a totally different team than we're used to seeing from Lane Kiffin. Totally different team. Let me make this comment. I'm just going to start with this because we're gonna attack Ole Miss's tape and we're going to attack Alabama's tape. The 6 quarters that I've seen from Alabama against LSU in the first half against Georgia, you can easily argue, and I will easily argue, they're the best team in the country. And if not the best, they're up there in the top 2 or 3 teams. Those 6 quarters were some of the best football.
Based off those 6 quarters.
Those 6 quarters.
Okay. Yep. No, I'm fine with that.
Ole Miss, I've come to the realization after studying their tape, got prepared for this last week against Georgia, loved what I saw. Watching them do it in that spot from a program that's never been able, or one other time, but never in our lifetimes, there's been a long, long time since they've been able to show up in that moment and play the way they did in that moment, in that game, with the pressure on them, with 2 losses, mind you. That's an elimination game for Ole Miss. Season's over.
Yeah, best receiver out, quarterback hobbled, tough start to the game.
And it didn't
everything.
They didn't just win. They put their foot down on Georgia's throat for 4 quarters, dude. That was awesome. I'm going to say this about Ole Miss. They are talented enough, and I think they finally have enough gumption. Let's use. They can win this national championship.
I agree.
They can.
No, can and do you think they're the favorites are 2 different things, but they definitely can. Things have to fall. The best team doesn't win every year. Let's get over that myth.
I'm never accused of preparing and having a great plan. That's just not one of my strengths. But I've already thought about this on Thursday in our show, and I want to prepare for it. And I want to go in and attack it. I really want to do a playoff eliminator draft style. You and I are going to draft teams.
Yeah.
And I want to go through it like teams legitimately we believe in they can win the national championship. And we'll draft them. You pick first, I'll pick second. We'll go to and see not only who are you picking first, like how much it's essentially an exercise in how much faith you have in this team down the stretch, big moments. And it's also an exercise in, okay, I don't want to go 12 deep. I want to only go as deep as we feel there's confidence behind that pick.
Right.
And I wonder, if do we get to 5? Do we get to 6? Do we get to 8? That's going to be interesting. But I promise you this, Alabama and Ole Miss are going to be pretty high on my list based off of what I've seen. I know it's Tuesday and Monday morning quarterback and overhyping and getting caught up in the moment. But I believe in both of those programs right now. So back to Ole Miss. Here are a couple notes that I wrote down.
Okay.
Offensively, and we don't need to get into a big thing here, but offensively, the thing that stood out to me that was different about Ole Miss than what I'm used to seeing is their pass protection versus Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
Not versus Vandy, not versus Kentucky, not versus Mississippi, versus Georgia.
Yeah.
Was exceptional.
Right.
And it was the game plan, and it was the offensive linemen. They're better up front than I thought. Not in the
I didn't
run
see that
game.
coming, by the way.
I
did not
see it coming. I thought it was going to be a tough day. I thought it was going to be a grind. And it was a combination of Jackson Dart and Simmons, right? The backup who came in and was 5 for 6. Those quarterbacks knew the game plan. It was very we got to get the ball out. We can't hold it. Like let's live with a 2nd and 10 versus a 2nd and 16. Like whatever it is, like the ball's coming out, but it wasn't a rush. It was, you know what I mean? Like it's not like it was a bunch of 3-step, get the ball out, short game. It was, they went through their reads, but they were decisive and didn't hold on the ball too long, but the protection held up. I thought Kiffin had a tremendous game plan. Mm-hmm. And you'd expect him to a certain degree, but I didn't expect Ole Miss's offensive front to protect as well as it did. Like the play action, quick game, the misdirection, they kept them just enough at bay, and the quarterbacks had just enough of the internal clock, but it really was the protection that stood out to me, and that's huge. Now, the run game, if Ole Miss is going to lose, and that's why the confidence meter, and we'll get to that on Thursday, it's like a GM always asks the scouts, all right, tell me if it all works out, what's he going to be? But then tell me how he's going to fail. That's the question we hear scouts talk about all the time. I got to go in the office and be prepared. I got to go to those meetings and be prepared. If everything works out, who can he be? If it doesn't work out, why? Right. And for me, at Ole Miss, if it doesn't work out, I think it's the lack of a running game that they can really rely on. And that typically has not been the case. And you do wonder, and I talked to Connor about this yesterday, I think it was. You do wonder, almost like a free agency situation. We talked about Mahomes, where they were with Tyreek, or is it Chris Jones?
Right.
You almost wonder with the NIL deal, Quinshon Judkins, we're going to let him go to Ohio State so that we can load up on this defensive front.
Right.
Intriguing, right?
Yeah.
New age of college football.
Ohio State's like, we'll take everyone. They don't care.
Yeah. And
different budget.
They've done a hell of a job in the Grove of raising money and bringing in guys, but it's a different budget.
Right.
But that leads me to, the defensive side where they did put in the money.
Oh, man.
They recruited, like the shift in the offseason was, if we're going to make a run at this, if we're going to be different than what we're used to, if we're going to win against Georgia, a number 2 team, in the top 3 team in the country, we got to be different on the defensive side. Yeah. Pete Goulding, exceptional job, defensive coordinator. Cut his teeth with Nick Saban. I always question guys. Like, I've sat in so many meetings with Pete Goulding. Love him. Just love his approach. He relates to the players. Learned under Nick. But you always wonder when you sit in those meetings, at least I always did, like, is this a Pete thing? Is he doing really, really well? Or is this just like he's coordinator by name only and Nick's running this whole, you know what I mean? So to see him move on and have this kind of success, I give him a lot of credit.
Yeah.
But also the recruiting, I mean, holy smokes, man. 5 sacks from this defensive front, all from a 4-man rush from what I saw.
Yeah, that's the thing, man, right? That's the thing. They don't need to bring more than 4. They can do 4, and then they can, and they do. They take advantage. They can bring more. They can mix up coverages on the back end because of that. Everything you talk about when a 4-man rush allows you to do. Sure, it allows you to sit back and play zone and do all that stuff, but it also allows you to gives you the freedom of mixing it up. You know what I mean? So you don't always have to bring guys. It is so big for them that they can win with a 4-man rush.
Let's
they
throw
have
up
5 guys that I think can get to the quarterback. So
let's throw up they're feeling it today, huh? In the production room.
Yep.
I said, let's
look at that.
And it gets ripped off. Anyone who's just listening to this podcast, our producers continue to excel. We've got a graphic up here, right? Name me a time, Muench, where you were talking about Ole Miss, and we've got 6 draft prospects, 6 that are going to be drafted all in the top 10 at their respective positions in terms of our draft rankings. This is wild, man. Like
one or two, right? There's one or two talented guys that you like. He could develop into something. This is just a wildly different group.
You throw Michigan up there as the backdrop. You throw, the maize and blue. You throw, what is it? The Garnet, Ohio State. You throw their colors up with their name. I'm fine with it. We come to expect it. Throw Georgia up there, Alabama up there. Even for a little stretch, like throw Clemson up there. We're used to seeing those. It's weird to look at Ole Miss, a graphic with 6 draft prospects that are in their top 10 and some of them pretty high up there. Let's go through it real quickly. Yep. Defensive front, 2 defensive tackles, 2 edges, and there's some depth behind them. We talked about the 210-pound guy running a 4.3. Like, we'll bring him in as a designated rusher. But Walter Nolan, number 3 defensive tackle, behind the 2 Michigan guys that I know you love. You love Michigan defensive tackles. But
I think Nolan might be number 2, by the way.
He might be. He might be, and we can. We got a lot of work still to do on our draft rankings, but certainly in this neighborhood. And I think the way he's played this year, potentially top 20, 25 pick, somewhere in that range.
Could be.
Okay, so probably the highest guy off the board in terms of defense, all defensive prospects for Ole Miss, all prospects for that matter. Walter Nolan, defensive tackle. Next to him, your guy, JJ Pegues, who's the most fun ball carrier. I think he has 12 carries this year. All have gone for a first down or a touchdown. And his short yardage run the other day against Georgia to midfield almost went for a touchdown as well, but got him the first down. Guy was shot out of a cannon. That a defensive tackle should not run the way JJ Pegues runs. We've got him as the number 10 ranked defensive tackle. Then at edge, some games I think Jared Ivey's better than Prince Umanmielen. Sorry, but Princely and Jared are both just factors. We've got Ivy we got Jared Ivey as the number 7 edge in this class, and it's a deep edge class, really deep.
It's a good edge class.
It's a good edge class. And then Princely we've got as the number 9 edge. So 2 top 10 prospects potentially at the edge position to flank those defensive tackles in Nolan and Pegues. Add another front 7 guy who's coming out of nowhere, Chris Paul Jr., Arkansas linebacker for a few years. He's been awesome to watch. Yeah. Absolutely awesome to watch. And 136 tackles with 6 sacks the previous 2 years at Arkansas. This year already, 72 tackles, 2.5 sacks. And the thing with when you're behind a defensive line like that, you're going to get a lot of opportunities.
Right.
He's been a flat eraser in the run game, sideline to sideline. And the beautiful part watching him is in coverage too, man. He covers well. So we've got him as the number 7 off the ball linebacker. And then finally, Trey Amos, who's having a great year, 6'1", 190-pound cornerback, not really known as a ball hawk coming into this year. Wanted to see him make more plays. Well, he's done it. 3 interceptions and a forced fumble this year. So 6 guys in the top 10 of their positions, 5 of them in that defensive front 7. What's different about Ole Miss this year? That's different.
Absolutely. I love it. I love that the 4 defensive linemen are all a little bit different. I think Princely is a guy who could be a 3-4 outside linebacker. He's a little leaner. He's a little more slippery. Whereas Jared Ivey's a power defensive end with he chooses violence every morning he wakes up, man. He is just a violent football player. Nolan's interesting to me because I'll watch him. I'm like, oh, he's good. He's good. And then you'll see something like I think he took the Georgia center and just threw him like 4 yards. And I was like, oh, okay. He's good. And then all of a sudden you see these flashes of like, this dude's dominant when he wants to turn it on. And my guy, JJ Pegues, he needs to work on some stuff, right? He's big and he's athletic. They play him inside, outside. I love that he's like that size and they play him at defensive end sometimes too. He's got to be a little bit better with his pad level. He takes himself out of plays by getting too far upfield, but then you see him disrupt a play in the backfield. I mean, these guys, the talent level is just different.
Let's switch over. Now, remaining schedule, Ole Miss, they've got 10 games under their belt. At Florida, I mean, we saw Texas, Florida. Like, God bless Billy Napier and what he's trying to do there. You're down to your 3rd quarterback in the SEC. Like, good luck. And then Mississippi State. obviously a rivalry game, but like just different levels. And you'd like to believe that they're going to be up for
Please
that
don't
game.
let them lose that one.
Yeah. Yeah. So you'd think that they're gonna be in a position at the end of the year.
Good.
Yeah, they look good.